Well guys, I'm back to my Mad Games Tycoon 2 series, as it's 2052, as we're still in overtime, as we're waiting for Orc Brigade 70th anniversary to be done. As when it's done, we're going to cancel Game Deluxe 5, Game Gadget 6, and wrap up the series. And by the way, it looks like I'm still making money. Oh my gosh, I'm still making money despite not really doing anything. That's wild. So of course, Orc Brigade 70th anniversary is the highest selling game I've ever made. Could it maybe hit 220 million? I don't think so. But I mean, it's still a possibility. Yeah, it's not looking so good now, as we're just going to wait for the series to wrap up. If this might be the final episode, it's just going to come down to when Orc Brigade goes off the market. Alright, good for me. Yep, still making money. I'm still making money. Oh my. Maybe it can hit 218 million? I don't know. Oh, it's getting there. Oh, there it is. That's it, people. Orc Brigade is now over. And with that, that is the last game of the series. As I'm doing some work on this thing right off screen for a little bit, because this is the last game. Now I'm going to type that in. There we go. Alright, guys. And with that, this series is officially over. Alright, now I'm going to go cancel. I'm going to cancel Game Gadget 6 and Game Deluxe 5. I still made money too, which is a crazy thing. Despite all me not doing anything, I still was making money. Alright, and there we go, guys. That is it for my Mad Games Tycoon 2 series. I tried this like 4 times, and I finally finished it. Oh, does it feel so good. Now, we got 2 things before we wrap up this episode in this series. First off, I wanted to take a look at the stats. So let's take a look at how our games did. In terms of reviews, the best reviewed game, Race Against Time 7, which was made back in July of 2000, 100%. And just so you all remember, this was the very first game I ever on Mad Games Tycoon 2 hit 100% on. I've only hit it 2 times. This and off-screen game sometime, I think it was like the day after World Finals 22. So only 2 times, and they happened, and the first one happened in a series. So that felt very good. And of course, we have like everything else with like 98. It seems like 98 is the max you can get unless you get like lucky with the draw that hit 100%, like I guess I did with Race Against Time. But you see like everything else, 98, 98, 98. It keeps going, going, going. Now the worst reviewed game, of course, Toilet Wars, which I think was my 3rd game I ever made back in July of 1976, 58%. Second worst, Animal Cart, October of 1977 with 60%. And of course, the very first Stone Knight, the very first arcade game I made back in April of 1980 got an 64%, but I still pushed through despite that. Dirty Drivers, June of 1978 got 64%. And then Food Fight in May of 1992 got 66%. That's probably the worst. I think that's the lowest score I've gotten ever since. I don't think I've gotten anywhere lower than that. Yep, looks like it. Except the pass. I don't count the passes. Alright, so in terms of reviews, Toilet Wars was the worst in 180 free games that apparently have made, even though some of them, a lot of them are DLCs and such. And the best was Race Against Time 7. Alright, now in terms of sales, the highest sold game of all time, Orc Brigade 70th Anniversary. 217,922,985 copies, with War of the Cosmos 5, 190,079,334. I have 4 games that have sold over 100 million copies, and all of them too were my series. The Croc Swamp was insane. It almost got to 100 million. And we have 6 games overall that have sold over 90 million. And then look at that drop off. Wow, what a drop off. A 23 million, almost 23 million copy gap in between here. So yeah, that's wild. Let's see, the worst selling game of all time. Those were the bundle, that's not counted. Toilet Wars is the worst selling game of all time. 39,786 copies. Hospital Rush, 66,157, Animal Cart 70,628, Troll Gang 85,849, and the Pacific Race 103,322. Man, I really hit it out of the park in this series. Like, the very first game, remember Rabbit Punch? The very first game I produced was the fastest I've ever sold 100,000 copies in the game. I don't think I've ever done that good since other than Rabbit Punch. And it made 1 million copies too, which was insane. What was its reviews again? We'll see in a little bit. I'll try too. We got the arcade games, as we only did Stone Knight, as you can see. Started off at 5,000, but made so much money, so I said, you know what, despite the terrible reviews, we're going to continue it. And then Stone Knight 2 did so much better. 3, and then 4 took a step back. 5 did a big boost. 6 got 100,000. 7 took a step back. Then 40th anniversary sold over 200,000. The 50th anniversary sold 277,000. And then Stone Knight 10 broke and shattered the record. 575,319 arcade cabinets. Alright. Turnover. The most money I've ever made was Orc Brigade Titan Sword. 3,456,617,366 bucks. The Croc Swamp almost broke it too. $556. War of the Cosmos 5, which I sold at a massive discount, was third with $2,934,379,317. Terrascape 3 made $2,875,647,469. And finally, the Diplomat 30th Anniversary, which was, I believe that was, yeah, that was, MMO, I believe. Yeah, it is an MMO. It actually did very good. 2,482,995,401, which is the most money I ever made on MMO, too. And now, the only thing left I could think of is IPs. And of course, my main series is, as we can see, Strange World has, wait, what? Wow, 0 already? Jeez. That's not really good. That's weird. I mean, when they say they drop off after like 5 years, I guess they weren't wrong. I was hoping that it would still be ranked by oldest to newest, so I can review them better, but apparently I can't do that. So I guess we'll talk about my series. So we'll start off with, I guess we'll just go from the worst to the best. So of course, Stone Knight. Arcade, my first arcade series I think I've ever done. It didn't sell a lot, see, only sold 1.51 million copies, but of course it's an arcade cabinet, so no surprise. But it made over $328 million profit. 48th anniversary got 96%. The first game got 64%, but overall 86% scores. As yeah, we did take quite a big gaps after a while, like 10 years or more. And after that, of course, Dragon Legend, which was the very first game. Wait, yeah, that is at that. Dragon Legend, which was the very first successful MMO I did. Although it took quite a bit to be successful. In the end, it sold almost 189 million copies. It made over $3.3 billion in revenue. The series wasn't really that good, though. The best was a DLC from 89%, and the worst was 69%, so it averaged out to 82. But the normal game, 80%, and then 2 got an 85, 3 got an 89, which actually ties it, and then 88 for 4. So the last 2 games were really good, but just was not really that much of a successful series. I don't think I'm going to bother doing MMOs again, because that was kind of annoying. And then after that, Terrascape. This one was caught completely off guard. In just 3 games, it sold 174 million copies. It made over almost $6 billion in profit. And Terrascape 2, I mean, the first Terrascape when it came out, it was so successful that it was one of the highest selling games of all time when it came out. Now the third one's up there in that list. But man, when Terrascape came out, it almost broke the records. I was like, we had to make that into a series. Probably the most successful series I've ever done. Look at that. The worst game, the very first one got a 95%, overall 97. I like to see someone try and beat that. Because it's going to be very difficult to beat this score. Let's go. Alright, then after that, action. My, econ sim focused on movies and anime was not, I didn't think it was going to be a series, but it ended up doing so. Sold over 138 million copies. Oh my god, I'm so ready. And made over $4 billion in money. The last two games were not as successful in terms of scores and such, but they still were very good. And that was just wild. And then, of course, we get to The Diplomat. Remember, this was like a runaway hit, too. As yeah, it sold over 190 million copies and made almost $6 billion in revenue. The best game, the Furry Fan version, got 98. The worst got 75%, but that was the DLC. The overall was 85, so very good series. And then we get to the very surprise one, too. War of the Cosmos. This, of course, remember, when it came out in 2019, shattered the records at that one point. And it was still weird how the second game had a much better score, but it sold way less copies. But after that, it destroyed the competition, as it's my second highest selling game of all time. In fact, the last game sold more than the previous games combined. That's insane. So in the end, War of the Cosmos sold 321 million copies. It made over $7.6 billion. And 95% average score. Only beaten by Terrascape so far. Very good. And then, of course, we get to my three original series is from the late 70s into the early 80s. Race Against Time, the second ever game I made, too. I can't believe my first two games I made series out of. Insane. So yeah, Race Against... Oh, I know, Race Against Time was in 1977, so it was not my second game. Alright, but it was my second series. And of course, I made an MMO out of that, and it was very, very successful. And of course, very happy that it was the first game to ever hit 100% score. I'm very happy about that. So yeah, sold only almost 215 million copies, made over 7 billion in revenue. 100% DLC, whatever, and 88% overall. Very good. And then Orc Brigade. Orc Brigade might be the most highest selling copy series of this game too. I mean, look at this. It was the first game too to hit 1 million copies. And then when Upale Wave came out, no, Upale Wave did not break the record at the time. But then Titan Sword broke the record, and boy did it shatter it. And then 7th Anniversary shattered that record too. I wouldn't be surprised if the most recent game, sold more than all the previous games combined. It was just insane. Almost 390 million copies, and made over $7 billion in revenue. And another very successful series, the worst one, getting only an 85. Which that one was really surprisingly bad. I don't know why it got such a low score. And then finally, the very first game of the series, Rabbit Punch. Like I said, it was the very first game that sold. It was the very first game I made in this series. I've been playing for 2 years. That the first game sold over 100,000 copies and made over $1 million in revenue. It didn't sell the most. It didn't make the most, but still is nostalgic for me. Even though it kind of has a lower average score compared to the other games. 228 million copies and almost $5 billion in revenue. Just wild. Wild, wild, wild. So nostalgic. Alright. So, yeah, I don't think there's... Let's see if it says 389 million. Yeah, so Orc Brigade sold the most copies, 389 million, with War of the Cosmos second, 321 million. And revenue, Race Against Time made the most money, over almost 8.3 billion. War of the Cosmos second again, by 8.8 billion. This is just wild. 188. How is it a negative IP? Oh my god. Wait, no, okay, it's not negative. I think they need to fix the IP value, because there is no way a series that makes billions and billions of dollars over time is valued only at 200 million. They need to raise that. It probably should be worth a couple these series right here should probably be worth a couple billions of dollars, honestly. Alright, I think that's it. Like, I really don't know what else to say. This was finally beat this game for the first time ever. It was very successful, and I hope to do more stuff in the future with this game. I'm definitely going to be doing more off-screen stuff and role plays and all that. Man, I hope you all enjoyed this Mad Games Tycoon 2 series. We had some fun. It was very successful. First game, right off the bat, 100,000 copies of $1 million. My first ever game that hit 100% score. Made over almost $80 billion at the end of it. Had some awesome series. I've had like, what was it, like 8 series as we counted? Just wild. Alright guys, I hope you all enjoyed the Mad Games Tycoon 2 series. We'll see you all next time. And finally, one more thing before I go. The one thing I mentioned earlier I was going to add on to. Throughout the series, I've been doing a Flourish timeline application. Remember, I'm sure maybe you've all seen like these timeline videos that shows like stat changes over like the stats and all that. I made one for this YouTube series where every year I would rank the games by top 10 highest selling games of all time. And with it now up to date, I'm going to finally make the video on that too. So be on the look for that out very soon to see from 1976 to 2052, what was the highest selling games of all time in this Mad Games Tycoon 2 series. Oh yeah, I forgot, there's one more, I knew I was missing something. The consoles. I knew I was missing something. Consoles. The Game Gadget 5, 335,924,999 copies just destroyed the competition. And my Game Gadget 6, one of only 6 consoles to sell over 100 million, and my first one to ever do it, handhelds, and they just destroyed the competition. The Game Deluxe 4 is my most successful home console ever, 90 million. Game Deluxe 5 only got 3 million. Yeah, like, after these 3 right here, nothing really was that, like, overwhelmingly successful. And wow, the Savannah was my worst home console ever. I lost so much money on it. It was an experiment I tried, and unfortunately it failed, and it didn't work out. Yep, there's all my consoles you see. Alright. And in terms of revenue, yeah, I have no idea what caused those consoles to lose so much money, but man, Game Gadget 6? Wait, it was... Yeah, 5. It's weird. Game Gadget 6 made more money, even though it sold way less. 8 billion. Game Gadget 5 sold over 330 million copies, yet it only made 4.7 billion. This is wild. Okay, then. Yeah, no surprise. Oh, and not technology level. That's not what I was looking at. Performance points. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Alright. Alright, guys. So, that's going to wrap up this episode. See you all next time, and hope to do some more Mad Games Tycoon 2 stuff in the future.